So I can't emphasize enough the power of conversation, the power of getting to know other people around you. Everybody has a different backstory. Everybody got to where they got in a different way. And sometimes it seems like it was really easy, but there's a ton of obstacles that we all face in life. It was really special that I got to have that chat with Carrie Doll, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. It would mean a lot if you were able to share this with a friend or on your social media to help both of our platforms. Carrie Doll has the Inner Circle podcast, and the Lifestyle Chase is mine. And honestly, we're both in it for the right reasons, wanting to share people's stories and help elevate others. On a side note, I am promoting an event, Yoga in the Garden, at the U of A Botanic Gardens. This is put on by Ripple Effect and the Roaming Yogi. There is a private barbecue dinner supplied by MKT. It's a ticketed event. There are many community sponsors that are helping put this on, and all proceeds will be donated to Daniel's Place, which is a fundraiser to build a sensory room at a local high school, in addition to 10% of profits supporting education for children in Kenya. Tickets available for that event are at rippleeffectyeg.ca, or you can find them on Instagram and Facebook at rippleeffectyeg or at the Roaming Yogi. You can also find event info available at yogainthegardeny.eventbrite.com. So thanks for listening to my little shout out there. I really hope that you enjoy the episode, and I'm just going to get started. Welcome to the Lifestyle Chase. This podcast features high performers who have found a way to live their best life while balancing their health, wellness, friends, and family. Proudly hosted by me, Chris Little. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to episode 49 of the Lifestyle Chase. And here I am joined by the one and only Carrie Doll.
The one and only, wow.
Well, it's the only one I've ever come across, so technically speaking.
Okay, well thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you. Your office is very fancy.
It's fancy?
Well, I record, if I host, I record out of my living room, which is also my kitchen, which, I mean, it's just a different experience altogether. But
Well, this is my office and meeting room, and we do it all in here, so that's why I had a bigger room, and I wanted to be multi-purpose and multifunctional. So yeah, it's almost like a boardroom too, so I'm like, it's a one-hit wonder.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like a very functional room.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping for.
So your day, did it have an early start? I think I saw on your Instagram story you were up pretty early.
Yeah, I was part of the 4 a.m. club today, and I'm trying to honor my body's circadian rhythm. And I never really knew what that was until my husband got on the bandwagon for it. And when he explained it to me, I'm like, I get it. Because your body will wake up naturally when it finishes a circadian rhythm. But if you go back to sleep and then your alarm wakes you up in the middle of another one, that's when you're really exhausted. But when you get up at that moment, when you're at the end of it, it's like, oh, I'm awake. And if you honor it, if you can just get your butt out of bed, and that's what I did today. And I crushed work this morning. So it's like I'm so alert. There's no interruptions. It's a beautiful time of the day. And I got a lot done in a few hours before I went for my workout.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm a big advocate for that. That's
Are you?
Stuff. Well, I mean, like, I'm in the fitness scene.
Yeah.
I like to pursue different things that make us better at what we do. Mm-hmm. And if it seems ridiculous, or if it doesn't seem ridiculous, and if it makes sense, then I'm into that stuff. Like the 5 a.m. club, Ron Sharma's book. Like, I love his work. Mm-hmm. I think he has a great way of telling the story.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have personal growth is sort of my wheelhouse. I love that stuff.
My jam. I'm all about getting up early lately and sleep. Yeah, all about sleep lately. Mm-hmm. I won't sacrifice sleep almost for anything. Like, I love being in bed at 9:30 at night. Has a big impact on the social life, but that's okay. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
It's just it feels good to feel good, and I don't like to do anything that will impact my morning workout. When I get up, I want a great workout in the morning, and if I'm tired, your day doesn't really get off on a right foot. It's my drug. Like exercise and the sun are two drugs that I rely heavily on.
And in speaking about like social life and stuff, like you volunteer for a lot of different things. And the one that stands out to me most, just because I saw it recently, was the Stollery Women's Network.
Yes.
That was recently, wasn't it?
It was. That was an interesting group to be part of. If you want some perspective on that, is honestly, I've been a volunteer with the Stollery for 25 years. And it began because way back in the day in my journalism career, I was a medical reporter. And I got to see things as a medical reporter that most people don't. Like going into the operating room where Dr. Ivan Rebecca was performing a procedure. He's a pediatric heart surgeon. A procedure he pioneered. It's called the Norwood procedure. And a lot of babies are born with holes in their hearts. And he pioneered a technique to close these holes and allow the baby to live a very normal life. And so he brought me into the OR back in the day. And let me tell you, when there's a little baby, it was a 14-month-old baby on a table, chest cavity wide open. The heart is like as big as a marble. And there's a team of like 20 people around this little body, and I walk in with a camera, and he's like, "Oh, hi, Carrie, come on over here." And that's all I see is this wide open chest cavity, and he's explaining how he is cauterizing and closing this hole in the heart. So you get sucked in fast because you realize what a diamond the Stollery is. And then, of course, I'm dating myself, but it's okay. Back in the day, Daryl and I don't even know if he would remember this. We used to do telethons to raise money for the Stollery. But that's when Bob and Shirley Stollery, the hospital's namesake, so it's named after, were still alive. And I remember interviewing Bob Stollery after broadcasting 12-hour days, raising money for the hospital. And I said, "Bob, why'd you do this? Why'd you lend your name to the hospital? Why is this important to you?" And he was a huge champion of Edmonton. And he said, "Carrie, it's your community. It's up to you to make it great." And that really resonated with me, and that's where my volunteer work really began back then with the Stollery and with a number of other organizations. But fast forward to 5 years ago, when 3 women from the Stollery came to me and they said, "We want you to be a part of something. Will you come to a meeting?" And I said, "What is this something?" And they said, "We don't know." I said, "Okay." And I said, "All we can say it's for the Stollery," and that's all I needed to hear. 9 women gathered in a room, and we didn't know why we were gathering. It was a grassroots organization to build something, a network, some type of gathering for women. And we kept meeting, every couple of weeks, and we talk about what it would look like. We became advocates for the hospitals. Basically go out and talk about what the foundation was doing and how it was fundraising and how that fundraising supported the hospital. That was 5 years ago. There was 9 of us in the room. That network has now grown over 700 women. And then after a year of being together, we decided to become fundraisers. And then in 4 years, we raised $1 million, all grassroots. And it was because we are talking about a jewel in our city that saves lives. It's young lives, and it's not just lives in Edmonton, like the children's lives. The encatchment area, the Stollery Children's Hospital, goes way up to the Northwest Territories, into British Columbia, into Saskatchewan, and then Calgary will even send the sickest of the sick to us. We're massive, and it's right in our backyard. And we need to do what we can to protect it and grow it. And on that one final note, what's so exciting is we are building the first ever mental health hospital for children in our city. There's nothing like it in Canada. This is huge, huge. One facility for children's mental health. Like, how huge that is?
For me, like, mental health is a huge importance in my life. I've done a mental health special on the podcast. That's imperative. It's important. Social media and all these different things, and going further and further away from our core values are affecting people and their state and their mental health. And it is something that if we don't kind of look at and target and nurture and help, it will get in trouble. So great news.
Mental wellness and physical wellness go hand in hand, and healthy kids grow up to healthy adults. If you can't take the steps when you're young, you're never going to get there when you're older. That's where the building blocks need to start. And I'm so excited that going to be one facility for it, because there's a stigma attached to having to walk into a clinic where there's 10 other types of businesses in that giant building. If you're walking through the doors of a mental health clinic and other people can see you, they know why you're going there, and you shouldn't even be subjected to that stigma that's attached to it. One building. Mental wellness, we need it, and we're blazing a trail in Edmonton, and it's so exciting. So this will be one of the biggest things that happens in Edmonton, probably, since our arena is a whole different arena.
Yeah, it's a completely different
Completely
category.
different, but this is huge. We're blazing a trail in Canada.
It's
so
incredible. There's
it is.
people in the city that work incredibly hard and devote their life towards mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Like Rose, like she is like a soldier for mental health. It's something else.
Can I just say, I have a girl crush on that woman. All the respect in the world to her. She's probably, in my opinion, one of the most prolific speakers on mental health in our country. I recently, a little side story on Blake, I recently was hired to MC and redo a huge conference that's been taking place for 15 years in our city. It's with Lloyd Sad Insurance. And it's a construction conference, brings together all different aspects of construction. And they were just looking to breathe some new life into it, so they hired me. And I said, what do we need? I said, why do we always have to do conferences with people just specialties? I said, you're in the insurance business. You've got to tell me that mental health is an issue for you. And they all said, it's huge. And I said, then let's bring in a speaker. And everyone was like, whoa, really? I said, yeah, really. So I brought in Blake Lotes. She was one of the speakers on the list, and she blew the doors off that place. You could have heard a pin drop for the 45 minutes that she spoke. Yeah. People were in awe. People were crying listening to her. She had a huge impact on the audience. So it's time for us to shift our thinking, and it's happening, and I'm so excited that it's happening.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back on like the start of being in the public space, the start of like being on TV, like what year was that?
Oh gosh, I've been a journalist for like 20 years. So, and my first job, if I go way back, my internship was at ABC News in Lubbock, Texas. And I went down to America for a couple of reasons. I wanted to see what the market was like down there. And also my best friend was a nurse. And during the Klein Health cutbacks in the early 90s, there were no jobs for nurses, so she moved to the States, so I wanted to go visit her. So I was like, I can kill two birds with one stone here. I get to visit my best friend and live with her for a couple of months, and she's in Lubbock, Texas, and I get to work with one of the American news agencies, and I called up ABC, NBC, and CBS, and ABC couldn't have been nicer to me. Said, come on down. And away I went.
So thinking about that, and this was something, because we kind of bantered a bit before I pressed record, and I was saying I want to save something for once I record. Your career has been almost as long, or maybe very close to how old I am. And I'm not trying to be an ass,
no.
But I just want to offer some perspective, because I'm going to get very vulnerable on my own podcast.
Okay.
When I started, like, I'm competitive in things.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, well, I told this person's story, I did a good job, and then I'll see other people telling people's stories, and I'll be like, why can't I get the kind of attention that this person's getting? Why can't I see the success that people are getting? And it was like a monkey on my back, because everybody's hard on themselves. Like, everybody's going to be their own toughest critic.
Yes.
And will compete against anybody that's out there. Like, someone who's been to the gym for like 3 months will compete against somebody who's been bodybuilding for 8 years. There's no question about it. And I was like thinking to myself, I was like, am I just doing a really bad job of this podcast that I do? Am I not like seeing all the effort that I put in come back? And my oldest brother, he like kind of gave me a reality check. He was like, dude, she's been like in front of people for almost as long as you've been alive. And he was like, nobody knows who you are, and you still get listens on your podcast. And I was like, oh, right, like that's true. And then when I brought that up to one of my friends, I was like, well, why don't you just interview Carrie Doll? I was like, you know, maybe I should. And so like, that's why we're here. Like, we're all bad, like we're critics of ourselves. We're really, really hard on ourselves. And when we look at perspective, like this, I was nobody knew who I was. And I'm not saying people know who I am now, but like bit by bit by bit, like your first year into your career, like being in the public eye would have been very like in proportion similar. Like you're just kind of spreading your wings, you're having your first mistakes, you're learning things. And I just needed that perspective to be like, heck, like, yeah, it's like I'm in the first year of my podcast, and before that, like, I'd be lucky if my neighbor recognized me at the grocery store. Like this is just reality. And I'm still having these conversations, and they're still meaningful, and somebody will eventually stumble upon them. But I just wanted to share that with you because, like, you might not realize that people around you that you've never kind of met, like, sort of you play some role in some capacity in what they're doing on their own. Mm-hmm. Like, would you have guessed that other people that are personal trainers that are doing a podcast would be interviewing their guests and like being hard on themselves because you're interviewing guests, and sometimes we're interviewing the same people, and sometimes it's completely different people.
Yeah.
So like, why would I compare? But I do.
Well, that's human nature.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We are always our own worst critics. So that's the first thing I will say to you. And the second thing is, I'm the biggest believer that age is just a number. I've always believed that when it comes to how old you are, but there is something to be said for experience, and you grow with your years and your experiences that you have. And believe me, when I started out, you have to remember that the media was very different back then. So think of like even back in my very first job in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, like there's tens of thousands of people that are watching me every night. And then when you take that lens and bring it into the greater Edmonton area, how many people are watching night after night after night, it's very easy to grow a profile. But with profile, when you become a public figure, you become almost public property. People think that they can say anything to you. And so you have to develop a very thick skin very quickly. And are you in competition with everybody? Yes. But I also quickly realized that there's opportunities to lift each other up instead of tear each other down. And at the time I was on the air with one of the greatest journalists I ever worked with and against, was Linda Steele. You know, brilliant woman, but I had all the respect in the world with her. But we were global, and CTV competed night after night after night, but it didn't mean that I wouldn't go for drinks with her after work. So I wanted to learn from her.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have to look at these as opportunities to learn from one another and to grow from one another and to gain some publicity off one another. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. And also, I mean, we put such a tremendous amount of pressure on ourselves, and sometimes we just need to adjust the lens a bit and say, instead of being in competition with, it's what can I learn and how can this person empower me. There's a saying out there that empowered women empower women, and that can be the same for people. Empower people empower people. So if you're one of those, I mean, look at you and I are sitting at the table. You have a podcast, I have a podcast. I hope that I can empower you and lift you up, and you do the same for me.
Agreed.
So I think we need to adjust the way we look at life, and we look at work, and we look at competition, because there's room for everybody. There really is. And you know what a great example is? And it's two people that I was just in St. Louis with my husband for a business conference. I don't know if you know the names of Andy Frisella and Ed Milet. So we were with them for the weekend. And are they competitors? You answer that question. Are they? Yeah. Are they the two biggest podcasts in the world right now? Yes. Yes, they are. And they're friends. And they lift each other up. And they have Arte Syndicate together. So they have a business group together. So they're lifting each other, working together. And I have learned that instead of in competition with, learn from, learn together, move forward together. And that, I think, is the learnings in this, if you don't mind me taking you down that path.
No, totally.
So,
I completely agree. And it's something that I see in the personal trainer industry. A big part of like my podcasts are creating lessons. And in the feedback that I've received, my ability to just kind of almost not cut myself down, but be very, very honest and real with like what goes on in my head is what other people are able to relate to, and like then they can sort of call themselves up and be like, what am I doing? Like, they're in a gym, and then there's like 10 other trainers, and then they're like, how can I get more clients than that trainer? But instead, like, what if it was, how can I leverage my strengths to make that trainer a better trainer? Because at the end of the day, like, our clients are going to be our clients. We're not going to lose our client because we made that trainer better. That's just not how it works.
Do you know what I would say to you? You go find one of the best trainers in the city who you admire most. Take them for lunch, him or her. Ask them what they do that makes them great, or what some of their daily practices are. Learn from them. We all need mentors in our life. And seek out the best, the people that you admire, and ask for their tricks of the trade. The greatest of the greats always want to teach.
Yep.
So be a student and learn from them. I have a coach. I have a mentor. Two completely different. I have a business coach that holds me accountable to my business goals. I also have a mentor who I look up to so much. And I'll say, what did you do to get here? How did you conquer this? How did you conquer that? Go seek out the greats and ask them.
That's been like the point of what's made my career successful. Is I've been very open to doing that. You know who Shar Vishant is?
Yes,
and
love her.
She was, I believe it was my first interview for a personal training position. And while I didn't get it, I'm not here to like focus on that because it's reality. Like, I was pretty fresh out of the certification, and she responded to my email faster than anybody else. She brought me in for an interview faster than anybody else. She gave me at least half an hour to 45 minutes of like quality conversation where she listened to what I had to offer. She gave me a challenge. She had me create a program based on 3 different profiles. She gave me a list of people to follow. She gave me a list of different like movements or variations based on what she would be using at SVPT. Like, there's nothing more that she could have done. And we are friends on social media. We talk back and forth. Like, these are huge things. Like, my business I run as like an independent contractor trainer out of Evolve is within close distance of SVPT, but I never think of myself as like a competitor. I think of myself as an ally. Like, if I ever thought that she was in trouble, then I would want to look out for her. And if I ever thought that some trainer in Evolve was in trouble, I would want to look out for them. If some trainer across town, well, I'll actually use an example, Jordan Jeske. He is someone that has really stood out as a mentor for me. When I wanted to be a trainer, I gave him a call, and he gave me like 45 an hour of his time just to chat about what it is to be a trainer. And one of the best pieces of advice going into being a trainer, if you're not already started, is to have somebody that's willing to talk you out of it. Somebody that's like, no, you don't want to do it. And then if you still want to do it, then you can be a trainer, because it's a tough industry.
Yes.
And when his dog, Rye Guy, was having like some injuries and needed surgery, and he was running boot camps to fundraise the money and everything like that, I felt such empathy. Like, why? Like, he's not like my brother, or he's not financially tied to me, and we're both trying to make a go of it, getting our clients in, but I felt empathy because of what he's done for me, what he does for other people, what he does for the fitness industry. So I'm a huge advocate for communicating, for learning from people, for seeing people's value first and worrying about the rest later. Like, there's so much that everybody has to offer.
That's what I mean when I use the saying, empowered people empower people.
Absolutely.
It's when you're one of those, you think differently. You want to support, not in competition with. So
I crushed through your episode where it was like your episode with you on your podcast. I listened to it at 1.5 speed, so I had to really focus. But some things that stood out to me were some really cool similarities. You enjoyed public speaking as long as you public spoke. And you went into competitions and did awesome. And you have a big family.
Yes.
Were you the youngest?
Yes, youngest of 10.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how my mom and dad did it, but I have all the respect in the world for them, because now that I'm a parent and whatnot, but yeah, I have no clue how they pulled it off.
and a bit of an age gap between you and the next sibling.
You're right. Good memory. I have 5 years, so I was probably a mistake, but I'll take that because 5 years different meant that the age difference meant that I was like almost an only child from grade 8 on, and it was cool having my mom and dad's sole attention for the last 5 years being at home.
I know that life well. And I say it so often that I get given a hard time for it, but there's like a 9-year and a 13-year age gap between me and both my brothers.
Okay.
So I lived that same life.
Yeah.
I got to have that supportive siblings, still have that supportive siblings. Like I said, the one sibling kind of gave me a reality check.
Right.
And I also sort of lived that life of sort of like the only child where my parents could really, really focus on me.
Right.
And it's neat just because not everybody, people are shaped by their childhood. That's
Absolutely.
something that I find.
Absolutely. And I have, when I do a lot of my, it's not just interviews, but because I do a lot of public speaking coaching. And when I start to, I call it peel back the layers of an onion for people who really struggle, it comes back to a lot of what they learned in their childhood, whether or not they felt worthy to tell their story or worthy to be on a stage, and it's not even, I try to take that stigma away. So many people say, oh, I don't need to learn how to public speak because I never go on stage. Well, yeah, you do, because it doesn't have to be a physical stage. Your stage is all around you. Your stage is around you in your coaching. Chris, every day when you're coaching someone, you're on a stage. Your stage is around you in conversation. It's around you in boardroom meetings, in any type of meeting. That's public speaking, whether you want to believe it or not, it is. So that's why I say public speaking is a life skill and a learned skill. And when I start to peel back those layers of an onion and I start to get to the root of maybe what there is causing their nervousness, it always goes back to their childhood.
Yeah.
Always.
And something that I like to think about, because I'm kind of sort of a bit of a hippy-dippy trainer, where I really promote believing in yourself. I won't just like toss a program at them and be like, we will just do exercise here. We will talk about nothing except for squats and deadlifts. Like the product is being able to be a public speaker, but the catalyst or like what you're mixing in is self-confidence.
Yes.
And it's incredible what can happen with self-confidence when somebody thinks of something that they thought that they could never do, and then they realize that they can totally do that, and then they apply themselves and it happens. And then just over and over, they're going to find that when they say, I can do this, they're able to public speak in whatever stage or capacity that is.
Do you know what the heart of that though is? If you go even a layer deeper, if I put on my coaching hat, it's not only self-confidence, it's the confidence in storytelling, because that's what connects us all. And I have called my course The Power of Storytelling, because that's what's at the heart of public speaking. You don't get up there and just spew facts and figures, because nobody's ever going to remember that. What you do is you tell stories. How do you get people to do squats? You can tell them that, well, this squat will do this for this muscle. Well, that's great. But if you tell me a story that you did squats for this many months, or that this is the result of this person, and give me a concrete story to attach to, I'm not going to forget that.
Yeah.
I can tell you that there are, let's say, 37 children that are born in Edmonton every day. I bet you're going to walk out of here and in a week you're going to forget that number. But if I tell you that a kindergarten class is born in Edmonton every day, I don't think you're going to forget that.
Oh, I love
and that is
classes.
truth.
Yeah.
That is the truth.
Yeah.
That's how many babies are born in Edmonton every single day. A kindergarten class.
People are busy.
So there you go. That's why here in my office, one of the greatest quotes that I live and breathe by is people may not remember what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So I bet in your personal training business, you make people feel every day. Every day, in order for them to remember, you gotta make them feel. And that's how you connect with people. And once you connect with people, you don't forget.
Absolutely.
And that's the key.
So true. So I want to sort of segue in the sense that we talk about self-belief and confidence and all these things and pursuits and your past career. What's a moment when you were the least likely to feel confidence or the least likely to feel that you could make something happen?
Oh, like a situation that I've been in?
That you just doubted yourself and like you were really hard on yourself and you just didn't didn't visualize success, but in the end found it?
Well, I think there's two, and they're two completely different ones. One, so I'll give you two examples. It was a number of years ago when I was a journalist. I was reading the 6 o'clock news, CTV, and I still don't know why I was chosen, but it was when President Clinton, U.S. President Bill Clinton, came to town. And he was speaking at Rexall Place in front of 10,000 people. My boss came to me and he said, "You've been selected to do the Q&A with President Clinton." And I remember looking at my boss going, like, what? And in my head, my first thought was, I can't do that. Like, what the hell do I know about interviewing a US president, like one of the most powerful people in the world? And that was a saboteur on the one side of my shoulder saying, you can't do that, you can't do that. And then on the other side, I said, yes, I can. I mean, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. And what do I do when tough situations are presented to me? I dig in and I stop being afraid of the hard work. And this is going to take a lot of preparation, a lot of hard work, a lot of extra hours. But do I want it? Yes. How bad do I want it? Really bad. That means I'm going to have to do a ton of work. So I was paralyzed for a moment, but then when I realized what I was giving up, there was no way I was giving that up. I was going to meet that challenge head on, no matter what.
Yeah.
And I did. And it was a highlight of my career. There was so much prep work involved and it was ridiculous. So that's one example. Another is a fitness goal. And when I first started working with a trainer, I always saw that as an investment in myself. And my trainer is Paul Placas at Custom Fit. And he said to me, it was like 3-4 months in, you're gonna putting you into the half marathon running club. He goes, you have to run a half marathon. I said, I don't run. He goes, well, you will once you get finished this program. He said, if you're gonna train with me, you're gonna run a half marathon. And you know what my first thought was? You asshole, I don't wanna run. And he goes, and I think I finally did verbalize that. And he goes, no, you're going to run. It's all part of your fitness plan. You came to me for a reason. You hired me for a reason. And I thought, in the back of my head, I'm gritting my teeth. I'm like, he's right. I know he's right. And it was always my dream to be able to run, but I never thought I could do it. So I thought, I'm going to continue on. And he lit a fire inside him. He made me so angry because he knew how to get to me. Even then, he knew that I was that A-type personality, that all he had to do was throw the challenge down in front of me. And in the back of my mind is that I'm going to prove him wrong. And I remember how hard it was to even run 5 minutes nonstop. 5 minutes turned into 10 minutes. 10 minutes turned into a half an hour. And I'll never forget the day that I ran an hour nonstop. I was almost in tears. I was like, I cannot believe I did this. I can't. And then that hour turned into beating my goal. I ran the Vancouver half marathon. 7 months later, my goal was to run it in 2 hours, and I did it in an hour 57:58. And it was one of the greatest accomplishments ever.
Yeah.
So it was taking that challenge and letting it fuel me, and it would marinate. And I'm that A-type personality that I refuse to fail. One of my mantras is, don't be afraid to fail, be afraid not to try.
Yeah.
And there was no way I wasn't going to do that. Like, I had to try. I had to prove something to me, not to anyone else, to me, because that's always what it's been about. Is I've always been in competition with myself. So it's like, what are you going to do with this, Carrie? He's throwing a challenge down. Are you going to meet it and run with it? Or are you going to shy away from it? And I won't walk away from something. I'm just not that type. So.
Did you find that you could apply that experience to your experience in your consulting business?
Everything. And there's been so many of those experiences in my life. And probably one of the most recent and one that really tested me was the loss of half my thumb. And I was injured in a wake surfing accident, and my thumb, I was using the rope exactly how I should have been. And the only reason I usually surf without the rope behind the boat, but it was a choppy day on the water, and the rope looped. What happened was, I was coming off the wake, I was flying, you have good momentum, I was leaning forward in an athletic position. The rope slacked. When the rope slacks, it loops. Think of a skipping rope. I caught an edge on my surfboard, and the loop closed on the end of my thumb and amputated it on the spot. My children were on the boat that day, and I needed to show them that I was okay. I didn't want them to want to scare them. And I also needed to, through my recovery, show them that I'm still me. But what was funny, it wasn't I was showing them, they were showing me. Because when the bandages came off, it's hard to look at your hand or you look at your thumb when half of it's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a pianist. I play piano all my life. So I was like, how am I going to play the piano? How am I going to golf? How am I going to do a lot of things? And it was my 12-year-old son that looked at me and said, Mommy, you'll always be beautiful to me no matter what. And then my spicy 8-year-old daughter looked at me and said, well, Mommy, it looks kind of funny to me. She goes, but you'll always be the same, Mommy. So your kids see something through one lens, you see it through another. But I was like, you know what? And it was the surgeon that said to me, do you have any idea how lucky you are? And at that moment, I wanted to throttle him because I thought, I'm not feeling very lucky right now. You know, half my thumb's just been amputated. And he said, an accident of this nature usually either amputates the entire thumb or the whole hand. You got off lucky. And I thought, you know what? He's right. In the grand scheme of things, this is no big deal. And it really hasn't been. I can play the piano again. At first, it hurt so bad because it's so nervy.
Yeah.
My golf game still sucks, but I'm back on the course and I'm playing again and I'm getting used to the swing the way it is. And the only thing I can't do is text because the end of my thumb is so fat I hit 3 fingers at a time, but that's what dictating's for. So I've solved that problem too.
Perfect. Just yell at the phone and tell it what you want.
Exactly. You know it. You know it. Yeah.
I like that. And you bring up your kids, and I honestly think kids are they're such a gift.
They are.
Like, people who have kids, they know it. They know that they have a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes they have to overcome a lot of struggles to get to have kids.
Yes.
Or they thought they'd never have kids.
Yeah.
Did you always see yourself having kids?
No, never wanted kids. For so many years, I was married to my career. And it even got to a point, it was 6 weeks before I met my husband. My dream was always I wanted to anchor a morning show in New York City. Because I love the morning show format because you get to do some hard news and then you get to do the interviews. And the interview was always my first love. And so I had my sights set somewhere in New York. I thought, man, that would just be the best. And I was in Edmonton doing the 6 o'clock news, and I was like here not even 6 months. And I'd met my husband, who I've now been married to for 15 years, 6 weeks earlier. And 6 o'clock news in Toronto, they offered me a job in writing, and it was a good offer. And that was my next plan. I'd go from Edmonton, go to the 6 o'clock news in Toronto stateside, makes sense. And CTV in Edmonton offered everything that Toronto was and then some. And that's when I turned down that dream and decided that Edmonton was going to be home and that I wasn't going to pursue that avenue. So all of a sudden I have this man in my life that I end up marrying, but I still didn't want kids. And he said to me at the time, all he said was like, there's no ultimatum, but he goes, what's life without kids? I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, you know, you can only travel so much, you can only do this so much. Like, don't you ever dream of what it would be like if, you know, like Christmas is and your future and watching your children grow up and seeing life through their eyes. And there was one year, and I don't want to use any names here, that I was over at a friend's house for Christmas. They didn't have any kids. And they lived in this beautiful house with this white carpet. And I remember seeing the carpet marks from their vacuum. It was so perfect. Everything was just so perfect. And it was Christmas Eve. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, what's missing? There's something missing.
Like a chocolate bar stain or something.
You got it. and noise and
Yeah.
kids screaming and excitement. And that's when I knew what my husband was talking about. And that's when it shifted for me. And I was like, yeah, what is life? And they're not for everybody. And until I saw it through a different lens, and you know, it was the best decision of my life to have a family, and it's changed everything for me. But you have to be ready for it. You have to be ready to go down that road because they change your life in ways that you could never possibly expect. Your heart will never be your own again because they steal it for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Did your definition of dream change? You had that dream of going down to the States. Is that still what?
Terrific question. Yes, it did. It was at that time when CTV, you know, more than matched the offer to stay in Edmonton. I was like, yeah, dreams can change. I was happy here. I enjoyed what I was doing. And I'm not going to lie. I always I still watched the morning shows. It was NBC News that I would watch all the time, Katie Couric and Matt Lauer at the time. And I loved watching it, but I just knew that I'm not going down that path. And my heart was full. I had no regrets. So I watched from a distance, and I cheered other colleagues on from the sidelines, and we're happy to see their successes as they pursued their own careers. But zero regrets, and fully recognize that dreams change and evolve over time, and you have to honor that and hold space for it. But the biggest key is to be happy in your own heart, because I get asked that question a lot. Did you regret not going there? No, I don't. It was the right decision.
Yeah, I find people put a box around themselves. And it's a box in such a way that we feel that for you to have fulfilled your old dream, you need to go down that pre-structured path. Like, there's all these studios with their shows, and you have to go to that studio that already exists to be on that show. But now we live in a world full of podcasts. We have the internet. We have a lot of things where you can create your own path. There's so much that your career can change because of what the world is now. So have your future ambitions changed? What is your big audacious goal?
My big audacious goal is I see myself, and I don't use those words lightly because I believe in the power of manifestation. I believe our thoughts create our reality, and I live and breathe by that, because I'll take you back to when I went to the University of Calgary and studied communications, and I did my degree in communications, and then I got a diploma in broadcast news. And every day on my way to school, I was driving my little beat-up Datsun car, and I had to go by Broadcast Hill, where CTV Calgary is located on, and I would look up, and every day I would drive by and I look up and say, I will work there one day. Not I want to, I will work there one day. And so it did happen. I anchored the 5 o'clock news there for a year, a month, and a day, until Edmonton called me and offered me their 6 o'clock news. So I digress for a moment, and I bring you up today. I will be on a stage somewhere in Vegas in a sold-out crowd doing some type of motivational speech about the power of story, the power of telling your story, and I will sell out that crowd. That's my goal. Yeah. I see it, I believe it, and I will be there one day. Because if you say, I want to, you're still not manifesting. You have to use the words that I will, and truly believe it. And that's what I'm working toward. Is I love connecting with people through story and empowering people to tell their stories, because everybody has one, but not everybody believes their story is worthy, and I want them to believe it, want them to. So
I'm on the same brain waves.
Are you?
See the same things. Nothing happens if you don't just bluntly say it's going to happen.
That's right.
And it can be ridiculous, and a whole bunch of people can say that is ridiculous, and it can be your parents could say it's ridiculous. Your significant other can say it's ridiculous. But you can still say this is going to happen. And if you say it every single day, it's probably going to happen. And it's funny that the world works that way, but it's funny because the world works that way.
Yes, it does.
I'm not doubting for a second. I'll buy tickets to your show. Maybe you can comp me one for free.
Consider it done.
Perfect.
Consider it done. We'll do another podcast backstage before I go out on stage.
It'll give me some street cred.
Of course, 100%. Deal made right here. You can hold me to it.
Excellent. So I want to go and think about your parents and just how they raised you, just childhood stuff like that, lessons that they've shared with you. What are 3 that stand out from each parent, if you're able to share that?
Well, my dad was a farmer, so I grew up in a very small town, and I don't know anyone who worked harder. He never complained. He was up, at the crack of dawn and put in some really, really long hours, and he loved what he did. And he always said, if you were going to be successful in life, you have to put in the time. So that work ethic and the power of to work hard and you will see results came from him. He led by example. So you want to see results, you got to put in the time. That's one of them. And the other thing my dad was brilliant at was he was my storyteller, and he told great stories. And when my dad passed, that church was just packed with friends. He had so many friends because he believed in the power of story and the power of friendship. And so I would sit around the table and listen to him tell his stories. And I think that's where I learned the power of stories and how it can connect people. Because you could hear a pin drop when my dad used to tell stories. So I learned about the power of story through him and the connections. And through my mom was about turning your talents, getting paid for your talents and hobbies. And I always say that public speaking, writing, reading, those were all talents of mine, and I found a way to get paid for them. And she made me recognize at a very early age that I had a gift for this. And she always said to me that you have to do what's in your heart. And if you can find a way to discover what's in your heart and then listen to it, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's exactly what I did. I look at what came naturally to me, and I ended up being a journalist. And I didn't. And even to this day, I felt like I got paid for a hobby all those years. So those are some of the lessons along the way: listening to your intuition, following what comes naturally to you, the power of story, the power of connections, and the power of hard work. Yeah, all from mom and dad.
And it's incredible, like, the legacy that our loved ones can give to us. And like it's in such a way that it not only inspires us, but it empowers us to send our own other people with that same legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be people that are a part of our life.
Yes.
That's how we live our life.
Yes.
And that came from our people. Or whether it be kids, and with your kids, what are some things that you want to instill in them? Things that are maybe non-negotiable for you, that you just want to see them thrive with or benefit from?
So one of the first non-negotiable is that they're a good human being, that they respect others. I always tell them to treat other people the way they want to be treated. So we're very, because I was raised that way too, big on manners and treating other people. I call them like it would be Mr. Chris. You would be to them, and to treat other people with that respect, and they will get that in return, to be good human beings and treat everyone equally. So there's that's very important for us. Another non-negotiable in our house is health and wellness. We lead by example. My husband Stephen and I, exercise is very important to us, and eating good food is very important to us. But we just don't say you shouldn't have that, you shouldn't be eating at McDonald's, you shouldn't be drinking pop. Like, we would never say that. Instead, we try to educate them. So we want them to have some balance in their life too, and we won't say like you can never have pop. If you want to, you're at a birthday party, of course, there's other kids. But then we'll educate them about what they're drinking. So, for example, you take a can of Coke or whatever pop you choose. And this is Kasha, our oldest, came to us and he said to me, "Mom, like, why can't I have pop?" And I just said, "I want you to understand what's in it." So I said, "Go get a glass." He got a glass, and I said, "You're going to count with me. Go get the white sugar now." Got white sugar, and we counted 13 teaspoons. It filled up half the glass. That's how many teaspoons are in one can of Coke. And I pushed the glass towards Cash, my son, and Allegra, my daughter, and I said, "Here, drink this." And they said, "Gross, Mom, gross." And I said, "But that's what you're drinking when you drink a can of Coke." And I said, "Now turn the can around and read what it says for ingredients." And Cash looked at it, he goes, "I can't pronounce any of these words, Mommy. I can't even read them." I say, "That's because they're all chemicals. I can't read them either. There's nothing real in that." So I don't just want to tell them that they can't. I want to educate them about the choices and what certain things will do for them and in their body. And sometimes I tell funny stories about, "Hi, I'm protein, and if you eat me, I look like this, and this will do this to their body." And they get a kick out of that, and that's how they remember, is through that power of story. So that's another non-negotiable is their health and their wellness and exercise. And I guess I think those would be the big ones is being great human beings, and then health and wellness overall. Yeah.
Those are good ones. And you talk about health and wellness, and I'm pretty sure I saw somewhere that you are now involved with Lululemon. Am I correct?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
What's that like for you?
Well, Chris, I can't even tell you how humbled I was when they asked me. I mean, Lululemon and I have a love affair that dates back to my first half marathon. That's where I bought my first ever pair of Lululemon pants. So I went out to Vancouver. First store opened ever on Robson Street. And I remember walking into that store and like angels sing when you walked into that store. Exactly. But I was like, I called it my champagne moment. When you achieve something in life, to me, that's a champagne moment. Champagne is I love my champagne. So I'm like, what am I going to do to reward myself for my achievement of finishing this half marathon and meeting my goal? I bought myself a pair of Lululemon pants, and I still have those pants today, as you probably saw on Instagram. So that was important to me because they represented it, not only like, of course, I love what Lululemon represents, like the sweat life, and that they're encouraging people to live healthy, positive lives and to invest in themselves. So it represents all those things, and that's what that pair of pants represented to me. Goal achieved, something I dreamed of, a healthy lifestyle, shifting my way of thinking. So all of those things, and then you fast forward some 20 years, and here they come back full circle to me, and they said they love that I'm using the power of my voice, and that what I'm representing and what I'm doing for the community, and I'm beyond humbled. And they're leaders in so many, they're thought leaders. I have all the respect in the world for that company. I really do. And it's an honor to be on board in this capacity. And I look forward to learning from all the other ambassadors and learning from the company.
Even like I find, even if you talk to the employees in there, like everybody has something to share. Like I've gotten to be friends with a lot of them on social media, and like they are leaders in their own right, and it is so cool to have that exposure to people who are so inspired in their own life.
Every time I go there, I like, even before this, my store is in Southgate. I'm there for like minimum an hour because I get talking with so many people, and then I'll be in the dressing room and they're like, you should try on this, and then I'll get into a conversation with another one of the employees, and they're all terrific people. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're right. The conversations I've had they're brilliant, and I walk out of that store, with so much feeling like my day has been enriched just spending an hour in there.
That's what I love about podcasting in general. Yeah. Like we're getting enriched from letting other people into our life through genuine conversation and hearing their story, feeling their emotions when times are tough. Like when I was breezing through your podcast, when you're talking about yourself and your story, when you felt emotion, I felt emotion. That is empathy. That is what being human is like.
It is.
And that's the great thing about having a podcast where we're just like talking and like talking about the things that excite us, and the things that are struggles, and the things that make us feel awesome because we did it, or the things that are on our horizon, we are certain they are happening because they will happen.
Yes.
It's neat.
And it's powerful, and I there's something I say, I call it that vulnerability is the new black. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love seeing so many people coming forward and sharing their stories and being vulnerable, and how you shared your vulnerabilities with me about how you felt, and in your earlier days that you were in competition. Like, vulnerability equals courage. For so many years, Chris, I lived in a very public eye on the news, and I had to maintain a certain persona in front of the camera, and I didn't let a lot of people in. I was very careful. And there were a few experiences when I was on the news. I did have one in particular that I had a stalker for some 6 months. I don't talk about it often, and so I had to be very careful with what I was doing and how I lived, so I didn't share a lot of myself. And when I left the news and then started my podcast and just let it all go, it was funny. I got to tell you this backstory. When I was searching for my first guest, Like, who's going to be my first guest? Am I going to try for Arlene Dickinson? Am I going to go for, a big name? Who's it going to be? And I couldn't land anybody. I just, was coming up cold on all fronts. And my husband said to me, he goes, you know who your first guest is? And I said, well, if you know, he goes, I know who it is. And I said, well, if you know, you better tell me, because I'm running out of time here. Like, we're launching soon. And he said, it's you. I said, me? What are you talking about? He goes, it's you and your story. And the more I thought about it, the more I knew he was right. And it was time for me to open up and be vulnerable and share what I had gone through and my struggles and my weaknesses and my losses and my strengths. And I went deeper than I've had so many people say to me, I had no idea, and I couldn't believe you went there, but thank you for going there. You know what? It felt good.
Yeah.
It was empowering. And once you go there, you realize the strength. You discover a new sense of strength in yourself. And then you're not afraid anymore. And you build on that. It builds character, and it's important. And for anyone who is contemplating that, and I'm sure you would agree with me, I would say, go there.
Yeah.
Go there.
Well, I mean, emotions are meant to be felt. When people experience loss is meant to be felt. When people experience joy, joy is meant to be felt. And to like hide those things, that's going to feel really, really empty.
You're
So
an
you
old
catch up
soul,
there
aren't you?
a little bit.
For you to see life that way, that's really powerful perspective, because a lot of people don't want to feel that because they're afraid. They're
I'm
afraid.
lucky to have a lot of really good people around me that cultivate my best self.
And it's good and it's powerful to go down that path, because that lifts you up and takes you to the next level. And when you're at that level, you can empower other people to come along too. And that's what allows you to kind of live the dream and to really listen. I always say to people, like, you got to listen to what your intuition is telling you. It's one thing to think about it, but to listen, that's for me is where my podcast was born, was listening to my intuition. That was what put me on my path.
Is the podcast the most memorable thing that your intuition has told you to do? Or is there something else that stands out when you think back?
Well, there's a lot. The first one that comes to mind was marrying my husband, because that was where, I'd been dating him for 6 weeks, and I was a late bloomer. I only got married when I was 32. So I was not looking to get married. I just thought, when the time is right, the universe will provide. And I wasn't ready. But when I started to feel like it, you open yourself up to it, the universe provides. So knowing him for 6 weeks, I knew at that time I would marry him, and that's when the Toronto offer came along.
Yeah.
But I knew I was going to marry this guy. So that was the first time I listened to my intuition. The second time was about having kids. I knew in my heart it was what I needed to do, so I listened then. And then with the third powerful time was when I left CTV News. It was the hardest decision and the best decision of my life, but I listened because my heart was bleeding inside, because I was never seeing my kids and I knew I needed to make a change. And the final time was with the podcast. And my mom and my dad passed away in the course of 2 years. My mother was my best friend, and I miss her. It's barely been 2 years every single day. But it was her voice that I heard one day, 4 months after she passed. I'm sitting on a beach in Costa Rica, and I felt so broken inside. And I kept saying to myself, what do I want to do with my career? There's something missing, and I can't put my finger on it. And I could hear my mom's voice as plain as day, and she used to call me Toots, or Tootsie was my nickname. And she goes, Toots, you know exactly what you need to do. You need to go back to your first love. What's your first love? And I was like, it's the interview. I've always loved interviewing people. And that's when I was frozen. I was like, oh my God, I need to start a podcast. And I looked at my husband, I said, I need to start a podcast. He goes, yeah, you do. I've been waiting for you to say this. Came home from that trip, and I said to Jen, who was working with me at the time, Jen, I need to start a podcast. And she goes, well, hallelujah.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this day.
And isn't that incredible how your mom's legacy empowered you and continues to empower you?
Yes, it does. Death has a way of bringing a clarifying effect into our life, and she empowers me constantly, even though she's no longer physically at my side, I know she's still at my side, and she's still, her legacy empowers me every single day.
I have
Yeah.
the same views on legacy. So many people that are in my loved one's life or in my own life, and I can just sense that presence in some capacity. Sometimes it's just in our internal monologue, or sometimes it's just that right moment, right time. But people that affected us at one point still affect us.
And she, yes, absolutely. Her legacy lives on in myself and in my kids too. I see it all the time. So.
So you have quite the supportive husband.
Oh my gosh. I married my best friend. I married the best person I know. And it's kind of, I know this is going to sound so sappy. We've been married for 15 years. And we just got back from another trip to Costa Rica. It's one of our favorite places. And I swear, I felt like we were on a second honeymoon. We just have so much fun together. There's nobody else in the world I'd rather travel with. And when we travel, we talk nonstop. We love exercising together. We really push each other. And, it's like, okay, we'll get up in the morning. We have this stair workout. Let's go for a PB. How fast can we do it? So we're both finding like exercise is both our drugs. And we love eating good. We love our sleep. So we're really aligned in so many different ways. And it works. And I'm so grateful for that. I really am. But I was never in a rush to get married. I thought when the right person walks into my life, I'll know it. Like I said, I was 32. So, and it happened when it was supposed to happen. I wasn't in a rush.
Yeah.
And I waited for that.
It's really cool. And I like how you talk about physical ways that he's made you better in like the fitness and the food and all those things. But in terms of like emotional and when you've hit like a wall, when you don't know if you can make something happen, what are like 3 ways that he's supported you emotionally in ways that nobody else in your life ever could have done?
He listens without judgment. And one of the things, and he wasn't always this way, but it's through, the first thing, he's a brilliant communicator. And what I mean by that is, I grew up in a family, believe it or not, where the silent treatment was our norm. So the way my mom and dad communicated was they didn't. When my dad got angry at my mom, he would give her the silent treatment. It would last about 5 days, and then they would sweep it under the rug and then move on. They never dealt with problems by communicating. So that became my normal. So when Stephen and I started dating and we had our first disagreements, I would give him the silent treatment because I thought that's what everybody did, because that's what I grew up with. And the first time he looked at me, he goes, "What are you doing? Are you giving me the silent treatment?" And I would be like, whatever. And he goes, no. We don't deal with problems by not talking about them. We talk about them. So he would just kept at me. And he taught me how to talk about the hard stuff. And it was hard. It was really hard, but I learned it. And what that served me in all different areas of my life, not only in personal relationships, but in business as well, because I found the proper way to talk about the tough stuff. And one of the hardest things for me was like charging for services, something that I used to, let's say, do for free, like MC. I'm now a professional MC, and it was hard to ask for money at the beginning. But I learned how to communicate those things through him. So he taught me the power of communication. And then the second thing is, I'm going to do a broad stroke with a paintbrush. Guys like to fix things. So when girls are having issues and they're melting down, they just want to fix it. A lot of times we don't want you to fix anything. We just need you to listen. We need to be able to spew and just listen. And he's done that for me. He holds space for me. So some days he'll say to me, "Okay, do you just need to vent for 5 minutes?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." And so I'll just let it all out, and then he just listens without judgment, and he doesn't try to fix it. So that's another way that we are really, really aligned. And then the third is that he's respectful of my needs, and I'm respectful of his. So I'm a clean freak. Like I have this OCD behavior that if the house is a mess, I can't think, I can't function. So he meets me halfway on that. He knows that the bed's got to be made before we leave the house for the day. Otherwise, my thoughts are scattered. So he honors that. So he's met me, and so I will do the same with him. So he knows what's important to me as well, and honors it, and that means the world to me. That just goes so far for me in my headspace, in my physical and mental wellness in a day.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Like, some people take these things for granted. They think, oh, that person is good looking, this'll work. But you need to have that kind of being continually growing through that person that you spend the most time with.
Are you married?
No.
Oh gosh, you're miles ahead.
I just read a lot of books and talk to a lot of people.
Good for you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that is really important, because that's too, it's on the finding out what your love language is. I don't know if you've read that, the 4 love languages, and what that means is everybody needs to feels love in a different way. Some people like it in acts of service, right? Like, I love it when Stephen makes the bed for me, and when the house is clean when I come home, or does all these little things for me. That means the world to me. Where he likes it when I'll come up and I show him physical love, like I'm hugging him, or I cuddle up to him, or those types of things. That's his love language. Mine's more acts of service. His is more physical touch. And I'm not talking just about, I'm not going straight to sex here. He just likes to be like, if I come up and cuddle up, or, loves to walk around and hold hands. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I'm not really that type, but I know that he appreciates it, so I go out of my way to do it. And I have to remind myself someday that this is important to him. I need to honor that in him.
And it's just like, because you said about how guys like to fix things, because I've learned that the tough way. Because as a person who likes to help, like, I think I'm helping. And I'm like, here's how we can fix your problem that you're telling me about. Never. They never want me to fix it. Ever. So I just gotta listen. And then show some compassion, perhaps. But
hold space.
Just
listen.
Be there.
Without judgment.
Yeah.
And sometimes the easiest way is, what do you need from me, or how can I help you? Do you want me to just listen? Do you want my advice? And we'll tell you. But a lot of times we just want you to listen. Sometimes we just need to spew those emotions out. Women naturally are more emotional. And it's we just want you to listen.
Totally. And like, it's a valuable thing to be able to just sit down and be like, all right, let's do this. And then they just talk.
Yeah.
And it's something, it's so small, so minute, but it makes such a big difference in like friendships and relationships and all these things. Because like, you can have all kinds of different friends, but how you are in that friendship will change how that friendship is for you.
That's right.
It's just something that I've learned so much in my focus for every week. I don't focus on how many clients I get, although like there has to be some focus. I need to eat. But it's in the quality of the relationships that I have with my friends, my family, all those things like that. Like, if I could have a coffee with somebody, I will. And then I can like share space. I can learn from them. I can offer something genuine from myself. I try to, my big thing is just be your damn self. Like, I have that as the caption on my Instagram.
Love it.
Just because people are just trying to be someone else so consistently. Like, they think that the secret is following the template of someone that made it. But the secret is following the template of what is closest to who you are. And I have to segue to the last question that I ask all of my guests. And I usually compile these together in like a little video with some Coldplay or something in the background. It sounds pretty cool. But my question is, if you could give one piece of advice to someone on how to authentically live their life to the fullest, what would that piece of advice be?
I live and breathe by the mantra, you can create your own reality. So what I mean by that is sometimes you just need to sit down and write out what that reality is. What do you want out of life? What are your goals? What are your dreams? Write them down. Like, put a whole column of them and then go out and create them. Way back when I said, I will work at CTV Calgary one day, and I created it. But it took a lot to get there. Well, I first have to go to school, and then I have to volunteer here, and I have to do that. Don't be afraid of the hard work. If you want something bad enough, create it in your life. It's not just going to happen by magic. Go out and create it. Take control of it. You want to be the best trainer in the city? How are you going to create that? Make a list of your ideas and your dreams and your goals. That's how you get from point A to point B. Find a way to create it. But you have to know what that is first.
Yeah.
Listen to that intuition and then go out and create it.
That's a good one. I want to thank you for sharing space with me today on this nice rainy day.
Do you know what? This gift is mine. Like, I really loved this conversation. I loved your authenticity. It was a really great conversation. Thank you of sharing a part of yourself with me. I'm very grateful for that and for this opportunity as well.
Awesome. And I'm sure this won't be the last time we'll do our interview.
No.
We're going to be doing Backstage Vegas.
You got it.
How
You
many
got
years?
it.
2, 3 years?
Oh, no, let's give it a little more breathing room. Let's go 5.
Cool.
Okay.
I'll hold you to it.
All right.
I'll put it in my calendar.
You're in.
All right. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to Carrie Doll and I and our conversation that we had. I had a lot of fun. If you have the time, make sure to support her podcast. Support the stories that she has shared and the stories that she will share, because she's doing it for the right reasons. And of course, don't leave me hanging. Support the lifestyle chase as well. My challenge is always to find an episode of somebody that you know nothing about and see what you learn from it. I really pride myself in asking meaningful questions. Sometimes it's donairs or pizza, but sometimes it's just that's the question that I want to know the answer to. And it's kind of neat to have those answers about people in Edmonton or from other areas in the world. It always makes a huge difference to my vision and goal of what I'm trying to do with the podcast when it receives really good feedback, when it gets the shares on social media, when it gets those reviews on iTunes and the comments where somebody says like what resonates with them. So if you're ever listening to a podcast, and it doesn't even have to be mine, it doesn't have to be Carrie Doll's, it just can be anybody's podcast, when you listen to it and it strikes a chord with you, always leave us some feedback, because otherwise we're left in this dark abyss of did they like it? Did they not like it? We don't know. But no matter what, thank you for the support. It means the world to me. I hope you enjoy.